Kia ora. Thank you, Amy, for the privilege of speaking to this group and to be part of this Explorers Hui in Christchurch. Just acknowledge those people who are here, Leanne as Mayor and the other dignitaries. Also just like to acknowledge the role of Ngāi Tahu and the privilege to be in their rohi. I'm an explorer from Auckland, so don't be too harsh. I have been an explorer here before though, originally back sometime in the 80s in my jandals and stubbies, so that's a vision for you, as a Lincoln student, but I've been back here many times since, and probably most notably in 2016 when KPMG was involved in a global study called Magnet Cities, and I think that's very much the purpose or the opportunity for me as an Aucklander to reflect on that and share some of those thoughts, so I'll do that. My journey from Lincoln back to here has been a varied one, but as a partner in KPMG, the point I would like to share with you or from my history or to highlight is my role as a connector in collaborative projects that try to power up Aotearoa. So that's my part. So the Magnet Cities is very much part of that story. I've worked on that project. I've worked on projects around grow for goodness sake for Auckland, a bit of a challenge, the goodness part. I've worked on an idea or concept called Tainui's Corridor for Welfare through the Waikato. I've worked with KPMG and ASB on their Insights panel, which has looked at a collaboration to double our innovation GDP. Out of that project came ideas like the CTO idea. These projects are about fueling New Zealand's prosperity, and that's what Andrew Hawkes and I and our team at KPMG are passionate about. They're all about collaborating to accelerate the amount of goodness we can deliver collectively. And Amy, this is very much your mantra in what you're doing here with the Foundation. Our Magnet Cities project was a project we kicked off in 2013 and central to my thinking today. We studied cities across the globe to try and look at those, and it was in a response to challenges in the UK, which had a lot of cities in decline. So we were looking for cities in serious decline or crisis that had somehow come out of that and were now in growth mode with abundance underpinning it. We found 9 cities and they all fitted to pretty much one model with 7 common themes or ideas that underpinned that model. And Hila, I'm sure you'll talk a little bit about them. They all started with one idea, which was about being a global magnet for quite a defined group of what we called young wealth creators. And so all these cities had this idea of being the magnet for a certain group of wealth creators that resided in the city to make a difference. In Pittsburgh, they were the robotics engineers. In Malmo in Sweden, they were the sustainable engineers and scientists, the ones bringing those ideas. In Changwon in Korea, it was about the environment. In Bilbao, in Spain, it was more about arts and culture. So real variety on who these people were, but they were the young wealth creators that anchored the idea of a magnet city. These cities were ruthless in the other 6 areas. So they were ruthless about pushing new ideas and pushing the boundaries. They were ruthless about building an identity, about building connections, about creative ways of funding that growth and that abundance. They were there about creating infrastructure and living space that could fit, that was relevant to that cohort of young wealth creators. And critically, the last of those factors was that they were all ignited. They were all ignited by leaders, not just one leader, but many leaders. And so those are the simple ideas behind the Magnet City. We tested those in Christchurch. There were two elements to that I took out personally with regard to that Magnet City idea. The first was actually they didn't rely on city government. They had the collective energy of the institutions like universities, hospitals. Interesting, isn't it? Hospitals as part of the magnet and the driver of change. The art galleries and business as part of the solution, so many leaders. The other critical point with all of those magnet cities is they were not about recovery. That's not a helpful word, recovery. They were about creating something new. And that's what Christchurch is about, is creating something new. Why is this relevant? In 2014, the report we wrote, Christchurch was city number 9 of the magnet cities, just highlighting the potential where it was. It had many of the right things that you looked at all of those other 8 cities, you had many of the right things that were there. You know, you had the vibrancy of the new art, you had the student army doing its thing. You had a swag of new people and new things happening, and that was important. We repeated some of the work back in 2015, 2016, and the star, to be honest, had faded a bit. Our combined reflection on this, Amy, when we looked at it again, we said, okay, that's an important time. And it was like any process of a change team. You know, you've gone through your shock. Then there's hope, which is when we had the first study. Dropping back to despair as you realise how damn hard it is, before getting into acceleration mode. And Amy, I think what Leanne, what we feel now is that acceleration. You know, as an Aucklander, forgive me, but as an Aucklander, you come down here, and my son is down here. You feel the energy, and you feel the belief, and that's really important. So, what are the signals? So Amy asked me for what are the signals. What do I see? The first, and this is why I love the idea of Explorer, is identity. In 2015, 2016, when we did our little piece of work, we thought about who would be the young wealth creator in Christchurch. And we called her Taylor. We gave her a name. She was pretty cool. She was an outstanding individual. And the underlying idea of Taylor was she was a creative disruptor. Someone who makes new stuff happen, someone who is passionate about the city, about the arts, about the technology, about the opportunity that is there with your great outdoors. The Explorer, you know, that's your definition of Explorer to me. And the Explorer is a shift, and it's your definition of what a young creator, a wealth creator should be. And that's the person you want to keep here and to get more of them, as a critical message. Another shift is the idea of new ideas. And that is what we're seeing now around technology. You know, the conversation around food in Canterbury and Christchurch has changed. It's a new ideas around food. It's a new ideas. We see environment as a challenge, but actually environment is your opportunity because it's new ideas. So you see that all the time. The next big one in terms of signals is around infrastructure, isn't it? You know, that's been hard work. But infrastructure for living and working, and it's happening on every corner. On every corner you see the change. There are new places to work, there's new places to live, there's new places to celebrate. And it's not beachfront Tel Aviv, apologies for that, and thankfully not, but something new, it's something different. But it's the same idea of, you know, attracting the cohort because of what is so cool about front opportunity. Signals, funding's been unlocked. You know, we talked with our model about funding. As a Lincoln old boy, maybe we'll rebuild Lincoln. It's a long time coming. You will have a sports stadium. You will move things along. The challenge is obviously to accelerate the unlocking of that funding. So that's important. There's new leadership emerging, and I think when we go through and we tick off our 7 factors, you know, that's what this foundation is about. It's about new ways of leading and bringing out the emerging leaders, unleashing the innovation precinct, unleashing the universities so that they contribute to leadership in the city. These are signals that bring us back to the idea of embracing the explorer. Concept I think is fantastic. When I reflect on the case studies abroad in Christchurch, then, you know, the explorer idea is very much in mindset, and that's important. The recovery mindset, I don't think the recovery mindset has been kind, and Hela will agree with me on this. You know, it hasn't been kind for Christchurch. It brings the idea of restore and rebuild and restart and repay, which diverts great minds and energy from creating something that is new, which is what every one of the other cities did, was do something new. The magnet cities were not built on recovery. They were not built on a leapfrog to something that was better than before. They were all about finding new space, and they did it at pace. You know, these are all 10-year programs, and that's what's exciting about the signals from today and what I wanted to share. And it sends a message, doesn't it? It sends a message to New Zealand, to Aotearoa. The message is the handbrake has been released. We've unleashed the mindset. We can take up the real challenge, I think, and the real opportunity of a new city and thinking wider, so beyond just Christchurch, recognising that the new city has those wider implications of providing a model for better cities in New Zealand. And that's really important. You know, a city that is smart, a city that is progressive, a city that is sharing. And that will be the magnet for the world's best young talent and young wealth creators. A city with attitude and courage that maximises well-being for all. I think that's exciting, and it's been a privilege to have the opportunity just to reflect on that, Amy. Thank you.